Under the Scope.
All right, hey everybody.
Hi.
Welcome to another Scopefall Film Flam. I'm Shane, this is Jared.
Hi. This is probably, we almost want to qualify this as a winter one.
Maybe winter.
It doesn't come out until December.
Oh, that's true. We're way ahead of schedule, just like we were with many movies this summer.
Indeed.
Jared was lucky enough to get us passes to Saving Mr. Banks.
Saving Mr. Banks.
It is a Disney story.
It is. From Disney.
From Disney.
Imagine that.
By Disney. About Disney. And
for exclusively a Disney audience. So
yes.
It's magical that we got in.
It tells the tale of the making of the
Harry Potter. Right?
Very, very similar. I was actually thinking about the movie Mary Poppins.
Oh.
The classic, I don't even know when that movie came out. 1964, I
believe
think?
so. If the film is correct, it was 1964.
And it tells the story of, it's kind of a dual story, actually. It's really about Disney wooing the longtime wooing of the author and creator of Mary Poppins, Pamela Travers? Travers.
Pamela Travers.
As well as Pamela's life as a child growing up in 1900s Australia and her family life.
And the whole process of her being wooed by Walt Disney to make the film is sort of ends up being a kind of a catharsis for her.
Yes.
In kind of dealing with her past. I sort of thought of her as almost a PTSD patient. Like she had such a traumatic past. But, I mean, there was good memories, too. But there were definitely some traumatic events that really shaped who she became. So,
and before we get into it too far, Jared, who was in this movie?
We should talk about that.
We always usually do that. We usually talk about the people that are in it, and then we get into the plot. Now that we're getting into now we're getting into the winter film fiesta.
Ooh, it's a fiesta, is it? Put a little salsa on that. I like it.
Empanada.
Keep things hot in the winter.
Yes.
Okay, who's in it?
Film?
Well, the big names are in the lead role, Emma Thompson as Pamela Travers.
Is it P.L. Travers?
P.L. Travers, I believe that's probably her pen name, but she's referred to as Mrs. Travers an awful lot, so we will refer to her as Mrs. Travers.
And if you're Walt Disney, played by Tom Hanks, you call her Pam.
Pam. So Tom Hanks, you've also got his creative people who helped shape the movie. You've got Bradley Whitford, you've got Jason Schwartzman, you got B.J. Novak. Her driver is Paul Giamatti. And there are some other people whose faces I don't recognize.
Did you mention Colin Farrell?
I did not mention Colin Farrell, who plays her father back in 1908, 1909, 10, whenever, in Australia.
And the woman that plays her mother in 1900s Australia looks like the female version of Kurt from Glee.
Okay.
That's what she looks like
to me. If you're a Gleek, I guess you know what that means.
You're going to love it. So go see this movie. A lot of singing.
So this film, as we said, it's the story of how Mary Poppins became a film.
Yes.
And it sort of intercuts back and forth between the present day of the film, which starts in 1961, and the past of our main protagonist.
Which is about 1906 or so. I think
it was 1908 is when they established it. And it probably goes forward a couple years from there. But, so Pamela's father he's kind of a good time Charlie.
Good time Charlie. He's a laugh-a-minute guy.
He's always talking about imagination and making up stories,
chasing
the kids around. But it becomes clear at some point that he's got an alcohol problem.
Drinky, quickie.
Seems to have some trouble with money and keeping a job, and eventually he also is ill. It looks like he's
coughing up blood.
Probably tuberculosis. I think that was going around at the time.
Everyone had tuberculosis back then.
So you can kind of see where things might go in her past. And so, present day, she has written a series of books about Mary Poppins. I believe it's a series, isn't it? Is it more than one? I don't know. But these books are beloved.
At some point, it's a series.
Walt Disney has been on a 20-year hunt to get this book made into a movie. He made a promise to his daughters, and he's never broken a promise.
Wow. Walt, how did you get here?
So, and then, it goes from there. Yeah. And if you're familiar with the movie Mary Poppins, you'll probably get all kinds of little delightful moments, how the film was shaped, how the songs are created.
I haven't seen that movie in years.
I haven't, probably not since I was a kid.
Yeah.
So, but the songs are sort of indelible.
Yeah.
If you've heard them, you've heard them.
Yes.
They don't go away, so.
Miss Travers is a bit of a stick in the mud, Mrs. Travers. She is very proper.
She's very dour.
Yeah, she's dour.
And proper is a good one.
She had no real intention of giving the property of Mary Poppins to Walt Disney, but she's in a bit of a financial pinch. So that's driving her, but she's very, very protective of this character because
they're family.
It's family. I mean, it represents her life.
Like and quoting the film here.
And so, so essentially, it's sort of her inner struggle with with giving up the rights, or does she give up the rights? I guess she does, because we know. At the end of the day,
spoilers, Shane. We don't want them to know whether or not it becomes an actual film.
What actually happens, Jared, is Walt Disney kills her with an axe.
Oh, didn't see that.
Forges her signature.
Big twist.
Boom. Yep, that's
harvests her soul.
and she becomes one with the Disney
You
cogs.
didn't know that he was the first Highlander. There can be only one.
I would have never known that the writer of Mary Poppins would be in the Highlander family, but there you go.
Immortal.
So, yeah, let's talk about this film, Jared.
Let's do that.
I sort of coming at it from two ways.
Okay. Coming at it sideways?
I sort of appreciate the I love these historical type films, which is, it's sort of like Mad Men in the sense.
Yeah.
You know, they're trying to establish a tone. Everything looks and feels realistic and appropriate for the time period.
Yep.
So I think as I get older, I sort of get a kick out of these tales of the 40s and 50s and 60s and just, you know, the past when my father was a child, and it's intriguing to me.
They do a really good job recreating.
They do, and I think that the acting overall is pretty darn good. I mean,
I would say Emma Thompson is fantastic.
Yeah, she's very good.
If she's not in the conversation for Academy Awards, I think she probably should be.
Sure.
Honestly. Hasn't there been some buzz about Mr. Hanks in this film?
If there hasn't been, I think that he needs to be in the conversation.
As a supporting role, I'm assuming, because he's definitely not the lead, but he's good. And from what I know of
Walt Disney, it's in the ballpark.
Yeah,
you know, and even if you don't know what Walt Disney sounds like, you still feel like he's embodying the spirit of what Walt Disney is.
And that's sort of the key when you're doing actual historical people, is you don't want to do an impression of them, an impersonation of them. You got to capture that spirit and that kind of that soul of the person without just being an imitation.
It's a fine line.
And I think he does a pretty good job of it.
I do too.
Yeah.
He's a good actor.
He's got a little mustache.
A mustache?
A mustache.
I do have to say, just for the record, at the end of the film, they showed pictures of all the real people that our actors played. Mm-hmm. I think the writers and the musical guys had to average about the age of 50, so maybe even older. So they got pretty good casting for those guys. Jason Schwartzman and
they might have gone a little young.
B.J. Novak.
That's all right.
But
because B.J. Novak's Bob character has gotten shot in the past, and I guess we're to assume it was probably in Korea or World War II.
World War II.
He seems a little young to maybe have fought there, but that's all right.
Yeah. But I think that casting sort of ties into, if I have a problem with this film, which is the slick Disney sanitation of everything. I mean, it's a glossiness, and it's like you don't want to get too, like, for instance, everybody smoked in that time period. And you barely see it. And they sort of hint, they do a thing with Walt Disney that he clearly does smoke and he sort of hides it. But it just seems like it's like the movie represents what Disney World is now. It's a glossification of reality. And because this is a Disney film, you get that.
And I think if you had another studio that made this, which never would have happened because Disney owns the rights to all this stuff. But if another studio had made this, you might have seen a little bit more realistic portrayal of people's habits in those days. People drank and smoked all the time. If you watch Mad Men, you know this. And there was a little bit of drinking, but not a lot. And it was always at appropriate times.
Yep. And the movie also also deals a lot with, you know, the swelling of the music and the beautiful orchestra. Almost, you know, it's some of the complaints that you might have heard, like in Forrest Gump, for instance. You know, always trying to be manipulative in terms of the story that it's trying to tell.
Yeah.
And I don't want to draw a direct comparison to Forrest Gump, but that's a movie that pops into my head that sort of worked on those levels, or Patch Adams, or something like that, where it feels a little manipulative.
Yeah, and I feel like
in terms of trying to tell the proper story.
Sure, and in that same vein, I felt like, you know, it being a Disney film about a Disney property, telling a Disney story. It was a little schmaltzy, a little reverential of the material at times, a little probably more so than it should have been, but
it had a little too much skin in the game to tell the true story. That's sort of the feeling.
Yeah,
but I think
not that it's a bad film because of that.
No, I think the actors overcome that pitfall that this film has.
Sure.
I mean, I think that for me, it keeps it from being a great film. But I think that as a total package, it does an adequately solid job.
I think it's a good experience. Yes. I enjoyed myself.
So, should we give this a score?
Sure.
We don't need to talk about this film for any more than 10 minutes.
No.
All right, so let's give it a score.
The Scope score is 2.5 stars.
2.5 stars, Jared.
2.5.
So that is
Probably a little
above
higher.
average.
Probably a little higher if you're a big-time Disney fan.
Yep.
You'll probably really, really enjoy this.
You stick around for the credits
Yes.
because they actually have some, like I said earlier in the review, they've got pictures that
Yep.
show the actual people. They've got tape because
She insisted on all the conversations being recorded.
Yep.
And so you're kind of wondering throughout the film, do they have those tapes? They have those
They
tapes.
have those tapes,
have
and they
those
play
tapes.
them, and they're very entertaining, and it gives a little body and depth and color to
Yeah.
what you saw on the screen.
Yeah, you kind of see how much Emma Thompson really did kind of pull off embodying that
Yep.
character.
So there we go, 2.5 stars, a slightly above average film.
Indeed.
I think that it'll be interesting to see how this is received and see if it is in Oscar talk very
not
soon.
for Best Picture, but maybe some
No.
of the acting performances.
Absolutely.
definitely.
So let's wrap this up.
Indeed.
The winter film fiesta rolls on, Jared.
I don't know about Fiesta. If you got a better idea, let us know.
Winter film.
I don't know. We'll have to workshop it. We'll workshop it. We'll run it by the focus group.
The problem is we workshop
We'll do
the fall one.
we'll do
we
a
can only
test.
do so many workshops.
We'll do a test screening, and we'll come back with an answer.
All
next
right.
time.
So for Jared, this is Shane. Thanks, Scope listeners, viewers. Check us out on YouTube. Like us. Subscribe to us on the channel.
All that stuff.
All that stuff.
Send us some snail mail.
Yep.
You can figure out where our address is.
We don't even know. All right, guys. See you later. Shane Crest out.
Ladies and gentlemen, we find ourselves once again at the end. I hope you've enjoyed our time together. I know I have. Fear not, Scope faithful. The days shall pass as if they were but a moment, and Jared, Adam, and Shane will return with another thrilling episode. Until then, send your comments to comments@thescopeshow.com or leave a voicemail message by dialing
612-21-SCOPE. That's 612-217-2673.
Thanks for listening, faithful fans. This is Tony Partington saying arrivederci. Tune in next time to another terrific edition of The Scope.